What up, y'all? It's DJ Envy.
And I am Gia Casey.
And this is another edition of the Casey Crew. Now, this is a little different edition. This is the Blizzard edition.
Okay.
Now, if you don't know, on the East Coast, a blizzard hit us a day ago or so. And we had to buy equipment and tape from our basement.
Yes, because we didn't want to let you down on Wednesday.
Right, so we actually I went to the Guitar Center in San Mash and went and purchased mics and all type of recording equipment so we can actually do the podcast. So it's in our basement. So if it sounds a little strange, a little different from what it usually sounds like, that's the reason why.
Okay.
If you hear kids come in,
They just might.
I summon them to upstairs. That's the word. I summon them upstairs. They're in Madison's room.
Summon them?
You know what I mean. I put their ass upstairs in Madison's room. I gave them food, candy, and TV.
And she's leading the pack right now?
She's leading the pack right now.
She's in charge? Okay.
But the kids have a mind of their own, so they just might come down here. You never know. So I'm just putting that disclaimer out there. And I just
But listen, this is live, so if it happens, then
right.
What are you going to do?
Now, also, as you see, I tried to set the mood. I lit a candle.
You did light a candle.
I lit a candle. I brought you water.
No, where's my chamomile tea?
I don't know how to make chamomile tea. I don't even know what chamomile tea is.
All you have to do is boil water.
I don't make tea.
You don't need lessons on how to make tea. You boil water, you drop a bag in it.
I don't know how to make tea.
And then you throw a heap of sugar in it. And
well, you should have
a
brought
happy
tea.
Camper.
On your way down, you should have brought your own tea.
You're trying to accuse me of being late to come down to the basement.
You was a little late to come down the basement. I said come down in 20 minutes. You came down in 22 minutes.
No, what did I tell you? I told you call me or text me upstairs and let me know when you're ready, and I will come right down. And I did.
It took you a little second.
A little second?
Probably stopped at the refrigerator and got
as
some food.
As opposed to a big second?
Shut up.
Yeah, I do have a little snack behind the couch over there. I hid from you,
probably
so you don't have to make fun of me.
Strawberries, probably. Now, also, I don't know if you realize, but the heat is at 80 degrees.
Yes, thank you. It is so nice and cozy down here.
It is too hot down here. It is too warm.
It actually feels really good. This feels good.
But don't get used to this. Don't get used to this.
Why not get used to this? I think this needs to be a thing.
No.
What do you mean? We're gonna set up a little room, put all this equipment that you got in the room, and we're gonna do this every week from our house.
Well, the thing with this is I like to go to the studio in the city because you get dressed up. You put on nice heels, you put on good clothes, and then we go date night after. See, I like that. Now you got on fuzzy pajamas and fuzzy socks.
No, actually, this is a fuzzy robe that you got me one Christmas.
That's okay.
So obviously you like it.
But not the fuzzy socks. Like fuzzy
What's
socks.
What's wrong with fuzzy socks?
It's not sexy.
Fuzzy socks, I mean, I can take it off, but fuzzy socks are nice and cozy. I think it's in keeping with the robe.
And is that my t-shirt?
What?
That's my t-shirt you have on?
This isn't your t-shirt.
That is my t-shirt. And my t-shirt. So I'm going to let you slide. So this is going to be like every once in a while when we have to. Every blizzard.
No, why can't this be every week?
Oh,
we can still keep date night intact. I will still get dressed up for you.
Then you'll be late to come to the basement to tape the podcast.
I won't, I promise.
All right. Well, we appreciate everybody for leaving comments and listening to the podcast. I mean, it's been catching on. It's been doing so well. We just want to say thank you.
It's a real blessing. We're really appreciative. Thank you for listening.
Absolutely. And I know sometimes we don't reply to everybody, but we read every email, we read every DM, every comment we try to read, and we appreciate it. And sometimes we take the questions of the week from those DMs or those emails or those comments. We definitely do. And you can always email us, thecaseycrew@gmail.com. That's THEEKCrew@gmail.com, and you can hit us up. But we appreciate you checking us up on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeart, YouTube, everything.
Yes.
Now, reading the emails, a lot of women out there have been asking questions about being pregnant and pregnancy.
They have.
And I wouldn't call you necessarily a experienced person, but you are an experienced person.
That was a little bit of a contradiction.
I know. I mean, you're like the doctor or the professional of being pregnant.
Okay.
Like you have 5 in the can and they all popped out healthy.
Yes.
So women always ask, how is it? How is it? They're nervous. They're scared. They don't know what to expect. A lot of guys always hit me their first child and be like, I don't know what to do.
They're nervous.
They're definitely nervous. And
I think a lot of guys are nervous, not about the pregnancy itself, but they're nervous about having to support a family
Yeah, that.
The idea of being the man of the house and having this new responsibility. You know, if it's your wife or your girlfriend, you know, typically two adults fend for themselves. But when you're bringing a new baby into a situation, it's a whole heap of responsibility, and not just financial, but moral responsibility. You want to be your child's hero.
Right.
And a lot of times we underestimate what pregnancy and having a new child does to a man, how it affects a man and his psyche.
Well, you know what? You know, for me, that was definitely something I thought about. But what also bothered me was I'm an only child. So I necessarily never held a baby. So I didn't.
Ebony, you never held Ebony?
I never held Ebony, which is my cousin. I never held my goddaughters until they were like 3, 4.
Okay.
So that baby stage, changing Pampers, how delicate you have to be when a baby cries, I never got there. So it was like learning on the job. So I was scared when this baby pops out, I don't even know how to hold the baby.
Right.
You know, and it's something that's natural. And for 4 kids, it was very natural. And the reason I say 4 kids is because when we had the last baby, I felt like a total F up. Like but I knew with
Why
Brooklyn.
was that though?
I don't know. It just didn't feel natural. It's like I couldn't get a grasp.
It's like you were scared all over again.
It was. It felt like it was our first child again. It's like I just could not get a grasp.
Which is strange because Jackson is only 2 years older than her.
Right. And it usually comes so natural. I mean, I could just pick up a baby, change a pamper, put him to sleep, and keep it moving in 1, 2, 3. And with baby Brooklyn, I just couldn't.
She gave you the spooks. It was a little weird.
She definitely gave me the spook. And now, you know, I'm all over her now because of that. Like, you know, we sit there, play games, make and spit at each other, and just have fun. But at first, I just didn't know what to do. I could not make her comfortable.
Right. But with, you know, with all the other children, you know, a lot of people worry about, okay, exactly what you just said. I don't know how to hold, and I don't know at what stage you're supposed to do this, and what if I make a mistake? And I always thought that, especially for mothers, being a mother is so natural. As long as you know to hold that head and that neck, everything else kind of comes very, very naturally. And it's not rocket science. You know, having a newborn isn't, I mean, it is difficult.
It is
waking
difficult.
Up in the middle of the night
It's
and
scary.
things that come along with it. But as far as the baby's safety and the bond that a mother has with her child, all of that, it's surprising how naturally it comes.
Right.
So that's not something that I think that should be a real genuine concern. But for men, I think it's a little bit of a different story. I think men need to be a little bit more accustomed to the idea. They have to get used to it, because I don't think that the bond and the care for the child comes as naturally.
Right. You know, and not only that, but I didn't know how difficult it was for a woman to have a child. And when I say have a child, so many things that affect their body. You know, when we had our first child, Madison, you know, I honestly thought that, you know, hey, you're pregnant, you go to the doctor, a couple of pushes, and boom, baby's here.
Did you really think that?
I never thought about it. It's not something I thought about. You know, you think about having a child, but you don't think of the details of how hard and difficult and what it does to the body. And, you know, it really takes a toll on the body.
I mean, for us, it actually wasn't too much different than what you thought it would be. It was a very easy pregnancy for me. I really didn't feel pregnant while I was pregnant, and the labor and the delivery were very, very easy for me. We had a complication afterwards, which we can talk about, but the pregnancy, my particular experience was that I carried Madison very, very small, as I did all of the other ones, but Madison was the smallest. When she was born, she was 5 pounds, 6 ounces. Full term, she was actually overbaked. She was supposed to have been delivered earlier. I should have gone into labor earlier, but my body just didn't go into labor. And what actually happened was we had a doctor's appointment and we went. On the same day, I had my pregnancy photo scheduled. So I had my hair done, my makeup done. I had everything that I needed packed neatly in the car.
Right.
The idea was I was going to go to my doctor's appointment because during the last stage of pregnancy, you see your doctor once a week up until you go into delivery. So I was at one of those general appointments where they pretty much take the baby's head circumference. They measure the stomach to make sure that everything is in keeping with where it should be.
The growth schedule.
Exactly.
Right.
And after that, I was supposed to head into Deep Long Island because we were living in Queens at the time and have the pictures taken. And I went, they did all the measurements, and they said, you know what? You should have already gone into labor.
Right.
The baby is overdue. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? They said, well, based on everything on our scale, you should have already had her. And I said, so what are you telling me? What does that mean? They said, well, we think it would be in your best interest to induce the pregnancy, to induce the birth of the baby. And I said, well, how do you do that? Essentially, they insert something behind your cervix. They use their finger and they insert it behind your cervix. And what's funny?
So they finger pop you. Go ahead.
Awesome. So
go ahead.
You know, you can be a little bit more discreet.
I'm sorry.
You know what I mean? Honestly,
just popped on my mind. Go ahead.
Of course. So they insert this chemical, hormone, whatever it is. I'm not quite sure what it is. And what it does is ripen your cervix, and it brings on the contractions, thus inducing the labor.
Right.
So they explained this to me, and I said, well, when were you thinking about doing this? Next week? Or they said, oh, no, today.
Not like now. Not right now, but right now.
Like, go home, pack your bag, come back to the hospital, and we're going to do it. You're going to have this baby today, or, you know, maybe early in the morning by the time we're done with the whole procedure. I said, yeah, so that's not going to work.
So I got a photo shoot at about 5, so maybe tomorrow after the photo shoot.
I can make it to the hospital tomorrow because if I obviously comply with what you're suggesting, then I won't be pregnant anymore and I won't have my pregnancy photos. I mean, I took some preliminary ones, thank goodness. So that was the plan. I left and I was headed to Long Island, and you called everybody. You called my mother. You called your mother, you called all of your aunts. And while I'm on the road, I'm getting all of these phone calls from all of the women in our family telling me that I needed to make a U-turn and get my ass back to the hospital and have this baby. And I was probably within about 15 minutes of the photo studio, and I decided to turn around against my will and checked ourselves into the hospital. And I got there, checked in, and they induced me. And the thing with being induced is the contractions are like contractions on steroids.
That's right.
They're not your normal contractions. I think because they're brought on artificially, it turns it up times 10.
The pain on your face made me feel like, thank God I'm a man. I ain't got to do this.
Those contractions were insane. So they gave me a drug called Demerol. And Demerol was my first experience being in a state other than perfectly within, you know, a normal state.
Yeah, it was high as hell. No, you were high.
I had never been in an altered state of mind in my life, and
you were pointing at things in the sky. You was like, "Look at that, it's flying!" Like you were so high.
What was it? I remember, and because you videotaped it, but that was before iPhone. So we have it on like the actual
big camera,
like the big camera, right. Like, you know, an actual like cassette camera. We have that, but I remember watching it back, and I was seeing things, and I was like, you look at that, you see that,
it looks like a wave.
You see that?
You was so high. I was like, I asked the doctor, I said, doctor, can I get some of that? You was high.
Oh my gosh, but it was so good because it dulled all of the pain, and I was on that until they gave me my epidural. Now, people always ask me, do you recommend an epidural, or do you believe in, you know, giving birth without drugs? Listen, I think that is a true occasion of to each his own. Me personally, I could not imagine having a baby without an epidural.
Right.
So men, in case you don't know, an epidural is a procedure where an anesthesiologist has a needle.
First, men, they kick you out the room. There's no men in the room.
Nobody in the room.
Right. They won't allow me to come in the room.
The anesthesiologist, and the doctor and or the nurse.
Right.
So you bend over and...
They put in your butt?
You and this butt thing, honestly.
You said they bend over.
No, you and this butt thing, though.
Go ahead.
Seriously.
Bend over.
You bend over.
When you think of bend over, what you think?
Typically, you clutch a pillow to give you stability.
Now, what does that sound like? You clutch a pillow, go bend over. Sounds like anal. Go ahead.
It's funny. When I was younger and my mother explained what an epidural was to me, she had me so scared of the idea of it. She's like, they take this long needle. It's like a foot long. Well, at least that's what I pictured in my mind's eye. It's like a foot long, and they stab it into your back. And I just felt that needle sliding through my vertebrae. And then all of this, my back ran cold. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's awful. I never want to get that. Oh no, but it was worth it because then I didn't feel anything. So I was so scared and skeptical about the idea of an epidural, but it's an anesthetic. So they first they give you a topical anesthetic. So the point where the needle enters your back, that part is partially numb.
All right, so that's like when you go to the dentist and they numb your gums or numb the tooth around it.
You know something? When they give you the Novocaine, like the...
Yeah. Because they put that little ointment on it first.
Yeah, they put the ointment on it. I don't even know if it was as painful as that. Every time that I've had an epidural, it wasn't painful. It might have been... I don't even think it was as painful as a bee bite or a bee sting. It was very...
You ever got stung by a bee?
I've never gotten stung by a bee, but I imagine what it would feel like. And, our child has been stung by a bee. I've been around you and you've been stung by a bee. So I just, it's not painful. It's not very painful. I barely felt it. The first time I was still waiting for it to be done.
Okay.
And I said, well, are you done? And no, I said, when are you going to start? And they said, well, no, we're done actually. So they insert the needle and then your back does run cold. You're flushed with this anesthetic that's running through your back, and what it does essentially is numb you. And I think most experiences are similar. Some people have varying experiences, but it numbs you pretty much from the waist down.
Okay.
So that provides you with the ability to not feel anything pain-wise during your childbirth.
Okay.
So I felt the pressure. You feel the pressure of what's going on in your body, but it dulls all of the pain. So similar, I mean, this might be a little TMI, but similar to going number 2, you feel what's going on, but there's no pain associated with it. So you know that you're passing something.
If you eat something hot, you feel a little pain.
Then that might be a little painful. But you feel that something is passing through your body, but honestly, it's as easy as pie. You feel the pressure, so you know when to push.
Okay.
You know when to push. You know when to relax. You know how to control your body. It doesn't take that away from you.
Right.
But it's actually quite easy because you can go through it without hurting.
Okay.
So I personally recommend it, but you have many women who want to go through the pain of having a baby. They want to know what it feels like to bring a life into this world.
Gotcha.
Sometimes people say that they do it because they want to remember. Because a lot of times you know, 10, 20 years later, your memory fades and you forget a little bit of what it was like. So some people want the pain so that it kind of reinforces their memory.
Okay.
So people want to go through it for their own reasons, and I understand that as well.
I'll pass.
But for me, the idea of passing something so large through my body without an anesthetic, without having an epidural, I wouldn't even remotely sit for that.
Gotcha.
So, and because a couple of the times we had a problem with the epidural and I went ballistic.
I remember.
Yeah. So anyway, I had the epidural and then I was on easy street.
Right.
So after you have the epidural, you can't eat anything, you can't drink anything because I think that your body reacts poorly as a result of it. So now you can only pretty much have ice chips.
Right.
After you have your epidural. So we did that, and then was time to push with Madison, and it was very easy for me. She was born in three pushes.
Right.
What I did not like, and I did not like my doctor. He seemed like a nice person, but...
You're going to talk about your butt and the slit? Wow, you're being a little TMI.
Yes.
All right.
I mean, this is for women particularly and for the husbands that support them. So I want to give as much information as we can.
Okay.
Like I said, Madison was only 5 pounds, 6 ounces.
Okay.
And there is a procedure called an episiotomy, which is where they slit the skin between the vagina and the anus. And what that does is it gives a little bit more room. There's a little bit more give, actually,
right,
for the baby to pass through.
Gotcha.
But that's usually when a doctor is having some difficulty or the baby is too big and they don't want the vagina to tear.
Gotcha.
So they cut it neatly with a scalpel, as opposed to risking you tearing in the same area.
Right.
So that the baby passes through more easily. My doctor, I felt that he was lazy and he didn't know if I was going to have to push or if it was going to be a long delivery or anything. So he cut me prematurely and I didn't know. He didn't ask my permission, and it was completely unnecessary because she was a peanut and she was born in 3 pushes.
Right. Now that was our first doctor, because I'm sure that your second.
Well, that was a male.
Listens.
That was a
Collado.
male.
Shout out to Dr. Collado. That's
yes.
our new gynecologist. Like
well,
I
she's
said,
not new.
Well, our last 4 kids.
She's not new. Our last 4 kids were delivered by Dr. Collado. So
the first doctor, I bet you don't even remember his name.
I don't even remember his name.
Okay, go ahead. He was a jerk for that, though.
So then after they give you the episiotomy and the baby is born, they stitch you up really quickly.
Right.
Which means that post-delivery, you have extra pain that just isn't necessary. When you urinate, it burns.
Right.
And they give you a little squeeze bottle. So if you could imagine a Poland Springs bottle, for instance, that you can squirt. When you urinate, at the same time you squirt the bottle so it dilutes the urine and
it doesn't burn as much.
And it doesn't burn as much. So you have to go through that and a little bit of a healing period. And for me, it was unnecessary. I'm sure for some women it is necessary, but my doctor was a jerk for that. So anyway, she was born and everything was wonderful.
Everything was amazing. Baby was healthy, no problems. Now, what I didn't realize is that when the baby was born and everything was good, now it's a healing process for the mom. I mean, you just had this traumatic thing in your body, or traumatic event that happened to your body. You push this baby out and they suck all the stuff out. I don't know what it's called.
They don't suck it. Afterbirth.
Afterbirth. They get all the afterbirth out.
That was from what Eddie Murphy movie?
I don't remember. Boomerang,
yes. Grace Jones.
Yeah.
Yes,
so they get all that stuff out.
They don't suck it out. They just remove it.
Remove it.
They remove it with their hands. Right. Go ahead.
So they get all that stuff out, and then now the woman heals. Gia had to heal.
So there is a period of about 2 or 3 nights that you spend in a hospital after giving birth, where they pretty much take care of you. They make sure that you're healing properly. They make sure that your uterus is shrinking back down to the size that it's supposed to be. They make sure that if you are wanting to breastfeed, that they have a breastfeeding specialist come in and teach you how to breastfeed.
Right.
They wait for you to heal and they get you acclimated before they dismiss you from the hospital.
Right. Well, with Gia, she got a temperature. She got a fever.
Right.
And it wasn't a normal fever, because sometimes when women have babies, they might get a fever. But you had a temperature of what?
104.
104 degrees.
Right.
And it kept going up. And it got to a point.
It went up to 104.
I think it was like 104 point something, I believe.
It might have been a little over, but it was lingering right around 104.
Right. And they were really nervous. I mean, they really didn't know what the reason was. Usually when a woman has a fever or a temperature, it's because when they take all the afterbirth out, maybe they didn't take something out. Maybe they left a instrument there that the doctor was supposed to use.
Well, there's usually just some kind of problem.
A gauze pad they might have left inside and didn't see, or
right.
There was some type of a problem, and they couldn't find what that problem was.
Right. So I had x-rays done. They took so much blood from me that both of my arms were black and blue,
right.
Because every time that they took blood and tested the blood, it wasn't what they were thinking. So their plan B would fail, their plan C would fail, their plan D would fail. And they began to get very nervous because they couldn't figure out why my fever kept spiking, especially at night. So it got to the point where they had to put me on something called an ice bed.
Mm-hmm.
And that was terrible. I mean, I was laying on an ice bed for hours and hours a day to try to control my temperature while they tried to figure out what had happened. And what they assumed was that some type of bacteria or something had entered my body during the act of childbirth, and they were trying to figure out where it was. They saw something that was in my kidney, but it wasn't very informative, the information that they were finding from the x-rays. And
to explain, usually they say that kids can get up to a temperature up to about 102, 103. And they said 103 is very bad. 104, it's like dangerous to the point where I believe they said you can start losing brain cells and things like that.
I don't remember how it was that they described it, but they said they were worried for my life.
Yeah, they thought you maybe weren't going to make it out of there.
Now, mind you, I felt fine.
Yeah, Gia felt fine. She was in the hospital bed, legs crossed, taking care of the baby, cracking jokes, but she was hot as shit.
Yes. I felt fine, but there was something that wasn't fine that was going on internally. Mm-hmm. And they would come into the room and see me happy. And the doctor kept trying to explain to me how serious an adult with 104 temperature is. Right. Because, kids and adults are different. We can have different temperatures, or our fevers can range. A child with 103 fever, of course it's dangerous, but not as dangerous as it is in an adult. And since I felt fine, I didn't understand. So they kept trying to explain the seriousness of it to me. And it was so bad that one day when I was on the ice bed, a nurse came in and
let me just say this before you tell that story. If you listen to our podcast and you're a first time listener, you know that God plays a big impact on our life. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those cases where we might not have seen it then, mm-hmm. but we understand it now. Now, this nurse, I don't even remember her name. She was an older African-American woman. She was a nurse, and she took care of Gia, and she was very scared when you got that temperature. So she came in at night.
Right. And one day she came in and I was on the ice bed. I was on the ice bed every night, actually. She was taking my temperature. And
let me cut you off one more time. And usually when a woman has a baby, they stay in the hospital for 2 days.
2 or 3 nights.
The 2 days, and they usually leave the third day. Mm-hmm. You were in that hospital 5 days. This was going on day number 6.
It was going on day number 6.
Day number 6. Go ahead.
But she came in to take my temperature and she was tearing, mm-hmm. and she was trying to hide it from me. And I asked her why. And she said, "This is very serious. We can't figure out what it is, but this is very serious." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Serious how?" She said, "It's life-threatening." And when she said that, then that's the moment that it became real for me, because this woman was so nice. Right. And she took care of me. She was the one that was bringing everything to me and bringing me my painkillers and, everything. And such a wonderful woman. And when she said that, it spoke to me. Right. And I realized how serious my condition was. So the following morning I woke up and she got all of the nurses on the floor. Well, I don't know if it was all of them, but it was about maybe 7 or 8 nurses, mm-hmm. and they all prayed over me. And my mother came in, and that wasn't good for my mother to see, because my mother, if I feel something, my mother feels it times 20. Right. Mm-hmm. My mother, like anything that hurts me hurts her so much more. So for her to come in and see that and realize that it was that detrimental, it really had an effect on her. And when they left, I felt something. I don't know how to describe it, but I felt something.
Felt it where? In your butt? I'm just joking. Go ahead. I'm just joking.
I felt, I felt some kind of relief. I think that's the best way to explain it. I felt good. And about 2 hours later, my fever started to drop, and they took me off of the ice bed. And they said that, I can have some comfort in a normal bed for some time, but they were probably going to have to put me back on the ice bed. My fever continued to go down, and I was released from the hospital the next day.
Right.
And I believe that it was because of all of the prayers that went up for me.
And that special nurse.
Yeah, they say that when you pray, it's best to pray in groups of 2 or more. When you pray in groups of 2 or more, then you're certain to be heard and acknowledged by God.
Right.
So I think that had everything to do with it, because after that, the second day they were running tests and everything, and it seemed as though my body was going back to normal.
Right.
And then I was released that evening. I went home, and my fever, it did go up, but not to 104. I had to see a kidney specialist. They saw something, and then all of a sudden I went back for a second. Yeah, I went back for a second appointment, and it was completely gone.
Right. It was the weirdest.
It was the weirdest thing. They never found out exactly what it was. Right. But
I just wanted, I wanted you to tell that story because I think a lot of men and women don't realize the effects a child has on a woman, and especially men, because we don't have the baby. So you don't understand. So when a woman goes through hormone issues and they I don't want to say bipolar, but one day they feel like this and next day they feel like that, like their body is going through a lot. And I think sometimes men take it as, oh, she's being bitchy or she's just being a bitch, but it's not. They're actually going through a lot. And I also thank God that we've had 5 children. We have 5 children. After every child, you've never had any problems. A lot of women go through where they're born and they hate their child. Postpartum, they dislike their child or they dislike themselves, and thank God, and we were lucky that you've never went through that or experienced it, and it's very common. I hear people talk about it again. It's very common. I just wanted to tell people about your experience, because I think sometimes when women have children, they don't know what to expect, or when men have a child, especially with me, I'm an only child, so I didn't have any other babies around. I didn't see anybody else pregnant. You were my first person that I seen pregnant, like have a baby, and so
in your life,
yeah. So I'm sitting there like, what the hell's going on? Like it's all freaky and creepy at the same time,
But with Logan, because the contractions with Madison were so strong, I didn't know that they were particularly strong because of what was the name of the drug? I can't remember the name of the drug, but the one that ripened the cervix. Because of that, like I said earlier, the contractions were so strong. So I was at Logan's birthday is December 28th. Right. So 3 days after Christmas, right, I was at the mall returning some Christmas gifts, and I went into labor and did not know it, because in comparison to what I experienced with Madison, these contractions were a joke. Right. They were so light and they were so full of nothing that I had no idea that I was in labor. So I'm with my mother and I said, I'm feeling something. I don't know. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's that thing that they call Braxton Hicks, which is like fake contractions, I guess, right, for lack of a better explanation. And they started coming regularly and then more regularly. And then the duration of this discomfort, if you will, was a little bit more extended. And I said, you know what, Mom, I think I might be in labor. Mm-hmm. She said, yeah, why don't you call your doctor? So I called my doctor. My doctor said, Gia, you're in labor. Meet me at the hospital. I said, now? She's like, yeah, I need you to meet me at the hospital right now.
Right.
I'm like,
I'm in the mall shopping.
I'm like, I just have about 3 more returns because if I have this baby, I'm not going to see a mall for another 2 months. And then I'm just stuck with these things that don't fit or that I don't like.
Right.
So I remember going into Banana Republic and the line was so long and I skipped to the front and I asked the person in the front, I'm like, do you mind if I cut in front of you right quick? Because I'm in labor and I need to get to the hospital, but I just have to return these boots. If you don't mind. She was like, okay.
I know, she thought she was crazy.
Yeah. And then I went to about 2 more stores. There was no way that I was going straight to the hospital because
to go back home.
Because
and we've never had a backpack.
Shopping all day. I'm like, no. I have to go home. I have to take a shower. I have to prim. I have to shave. I have to do my makeup. I have to do my hair. We're going to be taking pictures. So I remember. So for those of you obviously that don't know me, I do my makeup in the sink. I kind of sit in the bowl of my sink so that I'm very close to my mirror. And I remember sitting in the sink and you and my mother cursing me out from the bedroom. If you don't get out of that sink, you're going to have that baby in the sink if we don't get to the hospital.
Yep.
I'm like, call the doctor and tell her that we'll be on our way in about 30 minutes. My mother was like, Lord have mercy. Get out of the sink. We have to go.
If I could have dragged you out that sink, I'd have pulled you.
And I remember saying, the more that you guys are in my ear, the longer it's going to take. Let me just finish and then we're going to it's going to be fine. So we finally get to the hospital and my doctor comes in and she says, Gia, you're 7.5 centimeters.
You ready to rock and roll.
Like you are damn near about ready to start pushing.
Right.
And I'm like, what? I'm like, well, hold on. We have to have my epidural. So let's get the anesthesiologist. And she's like, you can't have an epidural. You're too late. Like you're past the time. And there's like a threshold of time where you're supposed to.
I think it's between 5 and 7 centimeters. I think
maybe something like that.
And you should have seen the worry on Gia's face. All she could think about was having a baby without an epidural. She started stuttering. She started asking questions.
I was like, if you don't get that anesthesiologist in here right now to give me this epidural.
Gia was like, I'm not having a baby. I'm not going to have the baby. No, the baby's not going to come out.
I will make this the most difficult childbirth for you.
It was hilarious.
Like, I will not push. I will not do anything. And she was like, let me talk to the anesthesiologist. So she got him in there.
Yep, to do it.
Yeah, and they gave me the epidural.
And I was like, see, I told you so. If you didn't stay in the shower, if you didn't stay in the sink, you would have came here earlier. You'd have had the epidural. Right.
But but you know something, when it comes to healthcare professionals, a lot of times I think that you do have to insist on things. And if we talk about the next 2 pregnancies, then I'll explain why. Because a lot of times, and it wasn't the case in this situation, but a lot of times doctors don't take you seriously when you express a concern or something. But
well, let's go to that point.
But I was adamant, and they gave me the epidural, and Logan was born, and he was born in 2 pushes.
2 pushes.
He was born in 2 pushes.
No problems, no complications. Everything was smooth.
Everything was great. Fine.
No temperature.
He was 8 pounds 2 ounces, big fat baby.
Right.
Little butterball.
Now, all the other babies were great. Now, we had no problems with no babies. We never had another complication again, thank God.
It was just the one with Madison.
Now, you just mentioned something about doctors sometimes and health professionals when sometimes you have to be persistent because maybe they don't know what they're talking about and they're assuming.
Well, I don't want to say that they don't know what they're talking about. I think that they usually know what they're talking about, but the problem is that a lot of times they don't give enough credit to the patient.
Well, explain the situation, what happened with you, because you were very adamant about this and you and the anesthesiologist almost got into a fight.
Yes. So this was with Jackson. It got to the point where they gave me my epidural, and I know what it feels like to have an epidural.
Because you're a professional.
Because I'm a professional. So the experience is that when I say you feel nothing from the waist down, or at least that was how it was for me, nothing from the waist down. Someone could have came in with a chainsaw and cut off my foot, and I would not have felt it.
Right.
I didn't have that experience with Jackson. They gave me the epidural, and I'm laying there and I was feeling sensation in my left leg. And I said, there's something strange about this. And there's a monitor behind you or, off to the side of your bed. And the monitor shows when you're having contractions. You see, the lines going up and whatnot. So I remember laying there and saying to Rashawn, are the lines jumping right now? And well, they really look like little mountains. They're not really lines, but I'll just call them lines for lack of a better explanation. So the lines started jumping. I said, are they jumping right now? You said yes. I said, okay. I waited about another, 3, 4, 5 minutes, whenever my next contraction was. I said, babe, are they jumping right now? And you said yes. I said, you see the problem with that? You said what? I said, I'm not supposed to know that. I'm not supposed to know when I'm having contractions,
right? Because
I'm supposed to be dull from the waist down.
Right.
I said, so that means that my epidural isn't taking 100%.
So Gia said, call that anesthesiologist again, bring his ass in here.
Right.
He came back in and they started arguing.
Well, first he said to me, well, you're supposed to feel a little something. I said, no.
He said, no, I'm not.
I'm not supposed to feel anything. Well, people's bodies take to it differently. I said, that's all well and good. I said, but I've done this twice before and I've never felt anything. The fact that I know when I'm contracting, I said, actually right now I'm contracting, aren't I? He said, yes. I said, well, I don't have eyes in the back of my head. So there's something wrong with this whole scenario. And he said, well, what I can do is I can give you a device where you can administer yourself a little bit more anesthesia. It's called topping off. So it's a little button that you press. You hold it in your fist, you press the button with your thumb, and it gives you a little bit more anesthesia. You can only do it, say, maybe once every 10 minutes or so. It doesn't allow you to overdose on the anesthesia. It regulates you. So I said, that doesn't really make any sense because my right side is perfectly numb. My left side is not. So if you are giving me this thing to top myself off, it's only going to make my right side even more numb, and it's not really going to do anything for my left side. That doesn't seem to make sense. So he brings in somebody else.
So now they're arguing right now. Now Gia is in labor where she's about to have this baby and she's arguing with the anesthesiologist.
And then my nurse comes in and she's looking at my blood pressure. She's like, you have to calm down because your blood pressure is going up.
Right.
And that's going to put you in jeopardy. It's going to put the baby in jeopardy.
Right.
I said, get me another anesthesiologist. I cannot deal with him anymore because he knoweth not what he's talking about. I said, I don't have any experience as far as medicine. I said, but this is common sense.
Now Gia's acting crazy. She's erratic. She's starting to tear.
I was so angry because I felt as though I was being dismissed.
And the baby's about to be born.
He wasn't taking my concerns strongly.
Right.
He was treating me like, oh yeah, well, whatever happens, happens. Oh, well, you can sign a piece of paper that, alleviates us of all responsibility if blah, blah, blah. I said, you know what? Get out. I want to see another anesthesiologist because you are being very condescending and you're not taking my concerns seriously.
Right.
So they get me another anesthesiologist. So now this nice person walks in and I tell him what my concern is. I said, I'm numb on the right side. I can feel it on the left side. What's the problem? He said, well, the problem is that your epidural wasn't put in correctly. He said it's not that it was a mistake or anything. It's just something that happens where if it doesn't go in straight, it can deliver more anesthesia to one side than the other, and it's not done evenly.
Right.
He said, so what typically we would do in that situation is remove it, re-administer it so that it's straight, so that you have an even distribution on the right side or the left side. And that just angered me because it verified what I thought.
Right.
What common sense told me that the other anesthesiologist didn't want to admit because he was the one that gave me the epidural.
He was wrong.
He was wrong. So when he came in and verified what my thoughts were, I felt good. And I said, well, no, I don't think that we can take it out and re-administer it because at this point I was so far along. I said, what's a plan B? So then my doctor gets there. Then my doctor comes in and says, okay, well, what I can do, I said, because Dr. Collado, I don't want to feel anything.
Right.
Nothing. So what she did was, and this sounds like it was painful, but I was numb enough where she could go in with a needle and give me a little bit more anesthesia. She applied it to my cervix to numb that, so that when, I had the baby, I wouldn't feel anything. So literally about maybe 20 minutes after she did that, the baby was delivered.
Right.
London was delivered.
So the point is...
Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, that was London, not Jackson. I said that was Jackson earlier. No, that was London.
So the point being is sometimes you have to ask questions and you have to get a second opinion, even if it's a doctor, even if it's a professional, a health professional, because sometimes they are wrong. And I think a lot of times...
Sometimes they don't care.
Right. And sometimes they just don't know. So sometimes you have to ask and you have to find the information because it's your body.
It's your body.
It's your life.
So you have the right to ask questions, to make demands, to get clarification, to understand, and to ultimately get what you want and what you deserve if it's in favor of your health.
Right. Right. So I just wanted to tell people and give people some of the complications and how your pregnancies work. Because people ask all the time. A lot of people are nervous. A lot of people are a little scared, and people just wanted to know. And I think that with us having 5 kids, it was easy to just tell, well, this is what happened with this. This is what you should look for. This is, if you feel this way, what you should do. I just feel like it's always good to give people some information if they don't know.
Yes, and there are a lot of other complications, like very serious complications. And being that so many women have babies every day, people take for granted and believe that it's so easy, but it's a very large undertaking for a woman to give birth to a baby, to bring a life into this world. It takes a lot, and people don't really realize it because it usually goes off without a hitch, but there are a percentage of women that, it's not as easy and problems arise. So.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing your experiences.
Okie dokie.
Today's episode of the Casey Crew is brought to you by Blue Apron. For less than $10 a meal, Blue Apron delivers easy to follow seasonal recipes along with pre-portioned ingredients right to your door. Now, for instance, now that we're going to be doing this podcast at home, I'm going to cook after the podcast. Blue Apron's going to help me out, and it's going to be good money.
Are you going to wear a blue apron?
No, I was going to be naked. Oh, no, we got the kids here. Damn, I can't get too sexy, huh?
Not too sexy.
All right, I'll wear a blue apron. I'm going to have some jeans over it. I'm going to have some jeans and then the blue apron, though.
It's not sexy anymore. Never mind the fact that I asked.
Well, we got kids in here. What are we going to do?
I mean, it's not going to be sexy.
Well, tonight I was going to do spicy shrimp, coconut curry with rice. What do you think?
Spicy shrimp, coconut curry with rice?
Yes.
I dig it.
All right, so that's what I'm going to cook for you tonight, and it's so easy. They prepare everything for you. All you got to do is just cook it, follow the directions, and it's good money. Now, check out...
All the ingredients are in the box.
Oh, it's all there?
Yes.
Now, check out this week's menu and get your your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/KCCrew. You have to try it out. Again, check out this week's menu. Get your first 3 meals free. That's free. 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 With free shipping by going to blueapron.com/KCCrew. All right. Incredible home cooking has never been more attainable thanks to Blue Apron. So make sure you sign up today. That's blueapron.com/KCCrew. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. Now let's get to the question of the email of the week.
All right.
Now this is from Taylor. Taylor says, hey guys, hey Casey Crew, I have a question for you. I know you have a daughter, she's 15, and I have a daughter who is 14. Right now, I'm having a problem because she likes to go out with her friends and they say I'm overprotective. We get into a lot of arguments. I won't allow her to go to the mall with her friends, and I won't even allow her to walk from the bus stop. Am I going too far, or is it one of those things where I'm being a safe mom? What do you think?
You are not going too far. We are so incredibly protective. I don't want to use the word overprotective. We are incredibly protective of all of our children.
Absolutely.
You know what Madison said to me the other day?
What?
She was like, Mom, I'm 15 and I'm not allowed to play in the cul-de-sac, right?
That's what she said? Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, but you know what you got to understand? It's like,
yeah,
we're very overprotective.
Yes.
And we are the parents that, you know what? I don't want you to go out to your friend's house, or your friends could come here.
Tell them to come here.
You know, you want to go to the mall? We'll take you and your 8 friends to the mall.
Yes.
You want to go here? All right, we'll take you and your 10 friends and get a car or a bus, and we'll take everybody. We'll get a Sprinter, and we'll take everybody because we'd rather be safe than sorry. We are very protective. We are very protective in everything that we do with our kids. Is it is what it is. Like, we are the type of kids that we will follow our kids up the slide at Chuck E. Cheese, and then Gia will be waiting down the slide to pick them up. Like, that's who we are as parents. Yeah. And the reason being is we've seen a lot on TV, and actually Gia was, as a child, it's like, I feel like we've been through everything. If there's a situation we've been through where Gia was almost kidnapped.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we are really protective of our kids to the point where...
But that's not the reason why I'm protective. I just think it's my nature.
I think it's also because of that. You might not feel that way, but if that didn't necessarily happen to you, I don't think that you would really be as protective. Like, we're super duper protective, like... The type where,
like, she's 15 and she literally cannot play in the cul-de-sac.
Well, not even that. I mean, we could be in the mall, and she goes to the bathroom, and I stand outside the bathroom waiting for her.
Yes,
it's just, I'm not out the store, but outside the bathroom door, just waiting for her because I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen in there. I don't know if somebody snuck in there and tried to do something to her. I want to be able to hear if she screams. I want to be able to. I watch too many movies where they snatch these girls, throw them through the window. I want to be there.
Yes, and you know something. The safety of our children has always been paramount for me ever since they were younger. I remember, let's see, Maddie's 15 now. I remember when she was about, I guess, 12, maybe even 11, and Logan, I guess, was 9 or 10. And I had a conversation with them, and it was preparing them in the case that they were ever abducted.
Right.
I said, well, this is what you do. If you're ever taken off of the street or in a mall, or if anything odd happens and, mommy or daddy happens to turn their head and someone takes you, this is what you do. First, you don't get into a car. You don't get into a car without giving a fight or struggle. You yell, you scream, you make as much noise as possible to heighten the chance of someone seeing what's going on.
Absolutely.
And stopping it or deterring it or giving you a chance. But if they're successful and you are in a vehicle, what you do is you sit quietly and you pay attention to everything. You pay attention to what the inside of the car looks like, what the inside of the car smells like. You look outside the window if you can. If you're not blindfolded, you look outside the window and you take inventory of what you are passing. You listen to see what kind of road you're riding on. If it's smooth pavement, if it's a dirt road, you pay attention. Gravel, if there's trees, you count if you can, so you can have some kind of idea of how long you are in that car. If it's 10 minutes from where you were taken from, if it's 15 minutes, if it's an hour, but you stay awake the entire time and you take as much information as possible, because if you ever get to that place, wherever it is that they are trying to take you, and you have an opportunity to get free or to make a phone call, right, you can give 911 as much information as possible. Or if you're returned home, you can give us as much possible to find where you were held or who did this to you.
And you should do that with your kids as well. You should have this conversation. I know it's a scary conversation, but we have it with all our kids as far as everything. I mean, if they see a van pull up, if they see a car that looks a little crazy,
they know what to do.
Memorize the license plate. Look at the car
situation.
Whatever it may, there has been some times where our kids had to walk from the bus, and this is the reason.
I mean, they're not allowed to, but there have been occasions that were beyond our control, where they might have had to have walked from the bus stop, which is literally 1 block away from our house. And Madison, at her age, at 15, she's not allowed to walk that 1 block home. Right. And I know that to some of you that might seem very extra. I know it sounds that way, but the reason is, if you are a child abductor and you have a target in mind and you know their schedule and you know that X child gets off of the bus at 3:20 every day on this corner, and then they walk home without a parent and without a friend, then it's very easy to take advantage of that situation if you are a pedophile or, an offender.
Right. And if you can afford it, as soon as our kids were able to take to the bus, we got them a cell phone. Now, it doesn't have to be an iPhone if you don't want to afford or pay for an iPhone.
A flip phone.
It could be a track phone. It could be a phone from 7-Eleven. It could be a prepaid phone. And what we do is when they get off that bus and they have to walk or they're in a place where we are not there, we make them call us no matter where it is. Even if we don't answer, we make them talk to our answering machine. So if something happens, they can always say, Dad, white Chevy, license plate 762348, whatever it may be. So we always have that information. Those are the type of parents we are because we are so extra about our kids' safety. Now,
and they have all of those things in place.
Right.
They know the procedure and what to do and how to act in case anything happens. And I highly suggest that you do that with your children. And it's funny, just yesterday and the day before, the news has been covering there was a young man,
a serial killer, right?
A serial killer. He raped and killed 3 women in 3 months.
That's crazy.
And he looked so unassuming. He looked like he could have been a young professional or a college student or something. And I take those opportunities to bring Madison and Logan into my room or into the kitchen, wherever it is that I'm watching the news, and I'll say, sit down and watch this story. Or as soon as the story is going, I'll record it. And if they're not home, I'll show it to them afterwards and say, this is the reason why we're protective. This is the reason why we have a certain protocol in place, because you never see it coming. Well, I don't want to say never, but it's very likely that you will not see it coming. It'll be someone that you never expect. And it's a situation that you would never think that you would be in. You never think that you would be the target of an abduction. You think that happens to people in the news, that happens to people in other towns or in other states under other circumstances, but it can just as easily be you. So whenever there's a child abduction story and, or anything relating to that, I always bring them in to say, hey, this is real life. This is real life.
So now you were in a situation when you were a kid. What happened with you?
Well, I was 9 years old, and my mother had brought home a rescue dog for my brother and I. And we decided that we were going to split the responsibilities. So it was my job to walk him and to prepare his food and feed him. And it was my brother's job to housebreak him. So the time frame that I was supposed to walk the dog was between 6:30 and 7 o'clock every morning. So it was around that time, and I'm walking the dog.
By yourself?
By myself.
9 years old.
9 years old. And it was a little poodle, and his name was Pierre. So I'm out on my block, and I'm going up one side of the street. And when I looked across the street, I noticed a man that I had seen a few days in a row. And I thought it was a little strange because I didn't recognize him as someone from my neighborhood. He was a legitimate stranger. And I see him coming up the block in my direction. And I'm paying loose attention to him. And then he proceeds to cross the street. But when he crossed the street, he was crossing directly towards me. Now, if you're walking in a particular direction, let's say you're walking north, when you cross the street, I would say probably 100% of people would cross at a diagonal. You wouldn't make a hard left and cross the street at a 90-degree angle, which is what he did, making him cross directly towards me. And when I noticed that, I changed directions, I turned around and started walking quickly towards my house. As I began to walk quickly, he began to walk quickly. And the quicker I walked, the quicker he walked. And then I began to run. And then he began to chase me. He caught up to me in front of my neighbor's house. And when he did, he just began to strangle me. His hands were around my neck, and he was choking me and not saying anything. Not a word came out of his mouth. And I'm doing my best to scream, and I was starting to lose some sort of consciousness. And my dog bit him on the leg. And without letting go of me, he turned to my dog and kicked him so hard that my dog flew into the street. And when he did that, I managed to knee him as hard as I could in his groin. When I did that, he let go of me for a moment, and I was able to run away. So I continued to run towards my house, and then he began to chase me again. When I made it to my house, now my house had 3 steps and then a landing, and then about maybe 6 or 7 other steps that led to the front door. So when I made it up the 3 steps to the landing, he grabbed me again by my neck and he yanked me off of my porch, and he began to choke me again, still not saying anything.
Right.
I wasn't sure what he wanted. It was clear that he wasn't necessarily trying to rob me. I was in a t-shirt and shorts with a dog, and I thought to myself, this man is trying to kidnap me. So I began yelling and screaming again. And one of our neighbors, whose name was Zach, who lived up the block, us young kids knew him as like the young, cool neighbor. He didn't live there, you know, he didn't have the longevity on the street like all of our other neighbors and whatnot. He was like a newcomer to the block. He might have only lived there a few years. And he was loading his van down the block. He heard me yelling and screaming, and you know, everybody knew he had a Rottweiler, and his Rottweiler was always with him. So he began running up the block with his dog, and I saw him coming towards us. And as he began to get closer, the person that was choking me let go and took off, and Zach and his dog took off after him. He ran to the end of the block and he made a left, and I didn't see either of them any longer. I regained my composure because I didn't want to be a basket case walking into my house, because I didn't want to alarm, especially my mother. And when I got into the house, I said, Mom, Dad, someone just tried to take me. My father hopped out of bed in his underwear. My brother hopped out of bed in his boxer shorts. And they said, what happened? I said, he just started choking me. I broke free. He caught up to me again. He began choking me again. Zach started chasing him. They went to the block. They made a left. They both ran out of the house and hopped in the car and took off. My mother and I called the police. We told them what happened. They came to the house. They picked us up, and then we took off looking for them as well.
Right.
So we might have been looking for about 15 minutes in the nearby area in my neighborhood. And when we were on our way back to the house, we saw a big scene. And there was another 2 cop cars pulled over on a corner, some people, and then I saw my father and my brother out there as well.
Right.
So when the cop car that I was in pulled over and we got out, I noticed that the man that attacked me was on the floor with Zach's dog sitting on top of him, and the police had just gotten there and they were trying to assess the situation.
Right.
I got out. I told the police that he was the man that strangled me, and they proceeded to get him off of the floor. Zach's dog got off of him, and they were putting handcuffs on him. My father was in a bit of a state. My brother was in a bit of a state. And the crazy thing that I noticed was that he had on a change of clothing. And without going through all the details, what we came to find out as he was being prosecuted was that he had planned on attacking me for some time, and he had hidden a bag of clothes in a neighbor's backyard. So when he made that left at the end of my block, he continued down that street and then hopped a fence into a neighbor's backyard, changed his clothing, and then came out on the parallel cross street. So when Zach lost sight of him and he went up another block, he didn't find him until he came out on the other cross street and Zach was waiting for him. So they went back and they were canvassing the neighborhood looking for this change of clothes because I was adamant that he was wearing something completely different. So long story short, he was charged with, I'm not sure of the exact charge, it was a long time ago, but I think it was something along the lines of attempted child abduction. And once they booked him, they got his fingerprints, they realized that he was linked to other robberies and other small crimes that were going on in the neighborhood. So I remember reality being very real for me at that time, knowing that these type of offenses aren't things that you only see on the news, and they're not things that you only see on your Law and Orders and your CSIs and, you know, shows of that nature. They're things that can be very real and very immediate if you don't take precautions, if you're not safe, if you don't have the foresight, or if you don't realize that it can be reality. When you slip or you're caught slipping, you can be a victim of something because you didn't realize that it can actually happen to you.
Right. And to answer your question, go back to you, Taylor, to answer your question, you know, we are very, very anal about our children's safety, and we try to make sure that we can possibly be there or that we can be on top of everything. But if you can't be there, and we know there's a lot of parents that can't be there, maybe they work, maybe their kids have to walk home, you know, even for me and Gia, I mean, I had to take the bus home. I had to take the dollar van home. I mean, it was, I couldn't, my parents couldn't be down my ass. So what my parents did was, like what Gia told you earlier, they made sure I knew everything about if something did happen, to yell, to follow, to keep my eyes open, to look, to try to see it happen before it happens so you could prevent it. And if it does happen, to make sure you are aware of everything going on so you could possibly get out of the situation. And I just remember my dad buying me a beeper at a younger age where he can get in contact with me. And not even that. I know there's not too many payphones around now, but what he did was he had an 800 number to our house.
Oh yeah, I remember.
So no matter where in the world or where in the country that I was, that if I had to call, I can always call home.
Right.
And when cell phones came out, he got me a cell phone, which at the time cell phones were super duper expensive, and I could only use it to call him if I was in trouble. And those things really, really helped. I know cell phones are a lot cheaper, and they have, you know, inexpensive phones at 7-Eleven and inexpensive phones all over the place. So if you can afford it, just make sure your child is equipped with a phone. Make sure your child is equipped with a phone with a camera, because taking a picture and sending it always works as well. But Taylor, you are not being overprotective or super protective. You're doing what's right, and continue to do it.
I mean, the way that I go about thinking about how I parent regarding safety, I always think of the worst case scenarios.
Right.
Always. And I act against those potentials. So for instance, Madison's at the age where, you know, she has friends that are juniors that drive, and they drive each other around. These are kids with new licenses, and they drive everywhere. And, you know, I don't judge how other people parent, but I know that when Madison has a new license, she's not going to have 3 other girls in her car going to the mall. I think that, you know, a child should be driving for a good amount of time before she's able or he's able to drive other kids around. And I also told Madison, when you get your license, you're going to be the one that's driving. You're never going to be a passenger in another teenager's car. She said, well, why not? What if they're good drivers? I said, your assessment might be that they're a good driver, but I don't know if your friends are good drivers for good driving's sake. I don't know if they text while they drive. I don't know if they talk on the phone while they drive. I don't know what their reaction time is like. I don't know if they drink or if they do drugs or what's going on in their life that may affect their judgment. But what I do know is that you are not going to be a passenger in a car where I don't know what may happen as a result of that driver's judgment. If anything ever happens to you, it's going to be because it was you and your judgment, not because I allowed you to be a passenger in the car of another child or another teenager whose judgment was impaired for whatever reason. That responsibility is going to fall on you. Right. And I'm going to make sure that you know everything that you need to know about driving and about safety and, everything. So you bear all of that responsibility. You're not going to be a victim of someone else's shortcomings. And she's like, oh, okay. Like her friends now, they walk to each other's houses and they walk to each other's houses at night and, they're out. And I'm just like, no, not you. Because where we live, there are no sidewalks. There are houses and there are lawns and then there's like curb. Right. And these kids, we're driving, we're on our way out, we're on our way in, and there's kids walking at streets, night. Pitch black, and I'm thinking to myself, there's so many teenagers in this town, and I don't want to say all of them, but a lot of them drink. A lot of them are new drivers.
A lot of them do drugs.
And, you're walking on the street. I mean, it hasn't happened in our town, but someone can be looking down at night and be texting, and then all of a sudden you're a fatality because you got hit by a car by a teenager that wasn't paying attention, or even a drunk adult. But I said, just the idea that you're walking in the middle of the street and not on sidewalks, that doesn't sit well with me. No, absolutely. And Madison, thank God she doesn't give us any pushback. Mm-hmm. She's like, okay, no, I understand. No. Everything that we put limits on her about, she's like, okay, no, I understand. I get that. I mean, I don't want to get hit by a car. I mean, I don't want to be the passenger in a car of a fatal accident. No, I understand. I get it. So she doesn't give us a hard time, thank goodness, because she could be a completely different type of teenager and give us pushback and argue with us. And
well, she understands.
She really does understand that our main focus is her protection and her safety. So she complies. I mean, I know it's hard for her right now because she has friends that have brothers that drive, and the brothers might be going to pick up their sisters from school. She might be going to her friend's house after school, and I'll just say, I'm sorry, but you can't go home with them. Come home and then I will take you. I'll take you to your friend's house and then I will pick you up.
Well, the main thing about us is, we want to make sure we protect and provide, and we want to make sure our child is safe. And sometimes our child is pissed off at us because we care more about her safety. And I mean, just like the other day, it was 1 a.m. and I was tired as shit. Mm-hmm. And
what are you talking about?
Madison, her friends were having a sleepover. Oh, and I was like, I'll go pick up your friends and bring them back to our house. Right. And it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and I had to be at work I had to leave at the house at 4 a.m. Right. But I got my ass out that bed and picked up all her friends and brought her back to our house because I just want to make sure that they're safe in our home. Yes. I can protect in our home. Yes. If they're not here, I can't protect. I don't know what's going on. I can protect here. I can make sure things are the way I want it to be here.
Which is very important at her age because just like we said earlier, a lot of her friends are drinking and driving, and a lot of them are doing drugs. And what I understand is that, parents, this is going on in the basements of parents' houses and they don't even know. The parents don't even know. Right. And then the kids are driving afterwards and the parents really have no idea. And, listen, there are kids that are partying in other towns, and I think that they're doing things that are a little bit more mature than the age of 15. A little bit more mature than being freshmen in high school, and their parents are allowing it.
Oh, not even that. Briefly, we had a neighbor who his daughter and son were at a bar.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
And they got a designated driver. Mm-hmm. And the designated driver was driving them home. Now, this is all allegedly because I don't know the full story. And as they were coming home, the driver crashed. I guess lost control and crashed into a big rock and tree near our house.
Well, it's believed that he was drinking.
Oh, we don't know. We just say allegedly.
I said it's believed.
Yeah, we'll say allegedly. I don't even put that out there because I'm not sure. But he crashed for whatever reason, and the son broke his. The son, did he break his back? No, the daughter broke her back.
Daughter broke her back.
And the son like broke his hip and broke his legs and has real serious.
She had a concussion.
Yeah.
She broke her arm. She broke several ribs.
Yeah, but they were pretty effed up.
I think the son had a massive laceration on his leg. Like, it was a very, very bad
And they did the right
accident.
thing. They didn't drive home. They got a designated driver. It's just, we don't know what happened. But to say that, you have to be very careful with your kids.
They were doing about 90 miles per hour, allegedly, up our street, and our speed limit is 25.
Right. But you just got to be very, very careful with your kids, and you have to really explain to them. And sometimes it might take you being tired, but getting your ass out of bed and making sure you're good, and making sure they're good. Another situation, and I'm just explaining what we do. I just remember your dad, when we were a teen, we were at a teen club, and your dad would drop you off at like 10 and sit outside the club until 2 a.m.
Yep.
And then pick you up. Or your dad driving to, was it Skate Key?
Skate Key. Mm-hmm.
Skate Key. Now,
Yep.
Skate Key was a roller skating ring in New Jersey. We, at the time we lived in Queens, and Gia's dad drove all the way to Jersey. Let you out. Now, this was the hood of the hood of the hood. Everybody was out there. I think SNS was DJing.
It was definitely SNS DJing.
SNS was DJing, and he sat out there in the middle of the hood that whole time and waited for you. And that's what we have to do as parents. We can never get too lazy. We can never get too comfortable. We always have to protect and provide.
But that's why parenting is so important. I remember everything that my parents did for me. So the idea of me doing it for my children isn't taboo.
Right.
It isn't taboo. It's not a strange thought. It's not a strange notion to me. I would never say, oh, well, I'm not doing that. I'm not sitting outside a club at 4. I'm like, no, I will take you. I will sit out there and wait. And, for parents of, older teenagers, listen, it's a nice, novel idea to think that, your kids don't drink, or they're not dabbling in things that they're not supposed to be dabbling in. But it very likely can be the case. And with Madison, and we sit down and we have long conversations about a lot of things, and she's very strict about how she conducts herself. Let's just put it that way. So she's one of those where, we have these conversations. She's like, well, I'm never going to drink, and I'm never going to do this, and I'm never going to do that. And I say, well, you know what, Madison, right now you might think that you'll never do it. But as you get older, things may change. Your ideas may change. You may meet people, or it just might come along with your maturity. So let's just say as you get older and you get into a situation where you're drinking and you're not supposed to be, you can always call me.
Absolutely.
To come and pick you up. I will pick you up. I will not ask you questions. I will not shame you. You'll know that I'm disappointed, but I will never do anything to dissuade you from ever calling me again if you need me.
Absolutely.
Because if you instill fear in your children, don't get me wrong, I do believe that your children have to fear you in some respects, but if they fear you so much that they can't call on you for help when they really need it, particularly when it can be detrimental to their safety, even though it may be a result of their own bad judgment, then there is a problem.
Absolutely.
I want my children to always be able to call me no matter what the problem, no matter how wrong they were, no matter how bad their judgment was. For me, it doesn't matter. I will be there to fix it.
Absolutely.
Call me and I will fix it.
No matter
you
what it is.
You have a problem, mommy will fix it. I'll call daddy in for reinforcement. Whatever needs to be done, I will take care of your problem. So they know that, I don't want to say that they get away with it clean, but they have to feel that comfortability, and they can't fear the backlash of something that they've done if it dissuades them from making a good decision.
Absolutely. Well, Taylor, I hope it helped. I hope
Yes.
I hope it helped. Now, if you want to hit us up with an email or you have a question, you can always email us, thekccrew@gmail.com. It's TheKCCrew@gmail.com. All right, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yes, hopefully broadcasting from our basement again.
You want to broadcast from the basement. I want to get out of here.
No, you just want to go upstairs.
Well, as long as you take them fuzzy socks off.
I'll take the fuzzy
You take the fuzzy socks off?
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll see you guys next week. I'm DJ Envy.
And I'm Gia Casey.
And we are the KC Crew.
Toodles.